As usual, World Superbike Race 1 was meant to be run on Saturday, but a huge storm swept in and torrential rain brought a delay to proceedings. The deluge lasted for the rest of the day, and to add to the drama of the title race, Race 1 would now take place on Sunday alongside Race 2. Unfortunately, the Tito Superpole race was cancelled. So, on to Sunday, and just moments before Race 1 was scheduled to fire into life, the rain came again and brought yet more drama and tension. It was frantic and frenetic on the grid, but the rain finally abated with a 20-lap race distance. Toprak Razgatlioglu versus Jonathan Rea, it's match point in Mandalika, with your commentary team of Alex Raby and Steve English for Race 1 in Indonesia.
The 21st of November, the latest ever title decider. Lights out on Race 1. Not a good start at all from Scott Redding. Rea is away superbly. Garrett Gerloff comes through on Toprak Razgatlioglu. Andrea Locatelli comes through on the inside of Razgatlioglu. Redding recovering to the inside line. Toprak pushed back to third. It's Rea who leads early on. Gerloff loses out in the initial skirmish. Tom Sykes forcing his way through very nicely indeed. Remember, from 6th position on the grid, he's already up to 4th. Gerloff a little tentative. Bassani comes through as well. Bautista also making progress. Rinaldi with a really strong start. All the way down in 14th position he started this race. He's already up inside the top 10. Mercado just losing a spot as Rinaldi comes through on him. Further progress now being made by Michael Ruben Rinaldi. It looks like he's got through on Bautista and Gerloff already. So he's gained all the way up from 14th on the grid to 7th position just in the early stages. Toprak finding his feet at the front of the field. It's Jonathan Rea who's burst from the line. Ideal situation for the number one. He's got a buffer in Scott Redding between himself and Razgatlioglu, but not for much longer. Redding tipping in there a little late, and Toprak gets through. And Tom Sykes right on the pace and right on the case of this top three.
Toprak's looking pretty good there, trying to make a run on the run into towards turn 1. He looks comfortable at this stage. It's in the second half of the lap though, that's where it really is in the damper conditions, so we'll wait and see what it's like on the run into towards turn 10. But Toprak doing a good job at this stage, keeping a watching brief there. Big crash, that could be Koenig at the start of the lap.
Very spectacularly indeed, and his inexperience telling there. He'd worked his way up quite nicely into 15th position at the time of going down as well, so a shame for Oliver Koenig, but it just goes to show that the top men, the experienced men, are able to make the difference in these conditions, and that's exactly what Toprak Razgatlioglu is trying to do here, hassling and harrying Jonathan Rea into the braking zones. Lap 2 of 20. This is going to feel like the longest race ever for those two.
Yeah, this is going to feel like they're tiptoeing around, really riding on their fingertips. And what's interesting is you can see for Toprak there, he looks like he's got that little bit of extra pace right now, a little bit more confidence than Jonathan Rea. Just looking at the riders as well, looks like they're all still out there in full dry configuration for themselves. Doesn't look like anyone's out there on wet weather knee sliders to give them that little bit more of a chance to be able to have that stability. So everyone's still out there trying to do what they can in these damper sections. Even that little advantage could have made a big difference. You can see for Bassani though, really confident on Tom Sykes in the run down in towards turn 15.
Axel Bassani, who's already been the star of the show in damp conditions earlier on this campaign in Barcelona, cutting his way through the field once again. Michael Ruben Rinaldi, after a strong start to this race, has dropped back outside the top 10. The start of lap 3, Razgatlioglu has been close each lap around at the end of this 507-metre start-finish straight. Finally he gets it done. Jonathan Rea turns into turn 1, but he can't get there. Toprak's already through, and Razgatlioglu hits the front in race 1. Bassani at the moment is the fastest man out there. Axel Bassani, who now cuts through on Scott Redding, set a 1 minute 39.474. That was half a second exactly faster than Scott Redding on the previous lap, so a change in the order among the two Ducatis. But Bassani could really put himself in the mix here with Razgatlioglu and Rea. It was Scott Redding who had a 1 second deficit to the top two. He gained all of that ground on this lap around, got it down to 0.2 of a second. Bassani now is making this a 5-rider train because Tom Sykes is still in there. 1.5 seconds covering your lead quintet. Rea with an opportunity perhaps into turn number 1. We know how good Razgatlioglu is on the brakes, but we also know that Jonathan Rea is going to be desperately keen in this season finale. Toprak still leads, Rea second, Bassani third, Redding fourth, Sykes in fifth. Nothing to choose between himself and Razgatlioglu as they come again in towards turn number 10. Bassani a little bit wide. He's going to get a better exit than the two riders now in front of him. It's a chicane 11 and 12. Difficult to make a pass through there. Reading getting back on terms, and they are so bunched up now. Look at Bassani having a go at Jonathan Rea as they come in towards turn 12, and Rea is bumped completely out of position. He wasn't expecting that whatsoever from Axel Bassani, and this is dreamland now for Razgatlioglu. And here goes Axel Bassani on Toprak Razgatlioglu, turn 10 of lap 5, and Bassani has fought his way through the field quite superbly from 7th on the grid. One single podium finish to his name. Remember back to those damp conditions in the Catalunya round earlier on in this season. Think back to the triple header. Bassani leads here at the Mandalika International Circuit.
And Jonathan Rea knows he needs to pounce on Toprak at this stage so that he can go with Axel Bassani at the front of the field.
And Jonathan Rea does copy Axel Bassani's aggression as he fights his way through on Toprak Razgatlioglu for second position through turns 13 and 14. Razgatlioglu pushed down to third then, hasn't found himself this far back in this race so far. We're only a quarter of the way through, and Rea now wants to hit the front. Oh, he moves Bassani out of the way. No quarter given there whatsoever by Jonathan Rea, and he's got exactly now what he needs. A buffer between himself and Razgatlioglu. Bassani working wonders for the current race leader, the new race leader, Jonathan Rea. New fastest lap of the race last time around from Rea, a 1:37.418. Razgatlioglu now will be aggressive on Bassani. Knows it's a top 2 finish he needs from this race in order to confirm himself as world champion. He puts himself back into a title-winning position. Michael van der Mark matching the pace at the moment of Scott Redding as Razgatlioglu makes his move on Jonathan Rea. Bit of a wobble from the pair of them as they make their way in towards turn 10. Rea thinks he might have the line coming off that at 10th turn, and towards turn 11 he does. Rea had the better pickup. Razgatlioglu was aggressive on his way in, but left the line open for Rea to pounce, and now Razgatlioglu has got Bassani and Redding tucked up all on the back of him. Half a second between the four of them at the end of the previous lap, and Bassani can't quite get it done on Razgatlioglu this time around in through turns 13 and 14. But as it stands, Razgatlioglu doesn't need to take any risks trying to pass Jonathan Rea. He only needs to stay in front of Axel Bassani and Scott Redding to be world champion, but he's taking risks anyway. They're going to touch. Surely they're going to touch. Just about. Jonathan Rea squeezes out of the way, and Toprak Razgatlioglu forces his way to the front on lap 9 of 20.
Jonathan Rea said on Friday, if you make a move into turn 10, you're not respecting your rival on the racetrack. And for Toprak there, he went in a little bit too deep. You saw that he had that endo on the run in towards turn 10. He was braking as hard as he could. And that wasn't a planned move. That was Toprak just adapting on the fly to that.
Now we know how strong Jonathan Rea is in through the final sector. Is there an opportunity for him to immediately respond? Surely that's going to be the key here for Jonathan Rea. Can't allow Razgatlioglu to escape at the head of the field. This is where Rea's been making up his time on his direct rival, but he's tucked in behind him. There's no way to get through in towards the bottleneck at turn 17. Might have to be a move in towards turn 1 at the start of lap 10 here. Razgatlioglu sees daylight in front of him, sees dark clouds above him, but is the race leader once again. Jonathan Rea ducks out of the slipstream in towards turn 1. Rea's going to be very aggressive here on Razgatlioglu. He's not close enough, and Toprak holds firm out in front. Turn 1 of lap 11, Razgatlioglu now will respond. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining World SBK, this is what we've been treated to all season long. And here goes Redding. Scott Redding down the inside of Jonathan Rea through 15 and 16, and that's exactly what Jonathan Rea wouldn't have been wanting to see through the final sector, where he's generally been making progress on Razgatlioglu, and suddenly Toprak is able to make a bit of a gap, a third of a second to Scott Redding over the line, half a second now to Jonathan Rea. That final sector of that last lap, bad news for Rea. Wide, very wide for Toprak Razgatlioglu. He's off the circuit altogether into turn 15. He's picked off by Jonathan Rea. Scott Redding is your new race leader. Bassani fancies an opportunity to get back into provisional podium contention. And that just goes to show you the perils of a drying circuit. It's not fully dry just yet. Redding over the line for a new fastest lap of the race, a 1:34.8. But that's two big scares now for Toprak Razgatlioglu on the initial warm-up lap before race 1 and on lap 12 of 20. He wants to bring it home now for this title.
Yeah, the one thing for Toprak is he knows finishing third is good enough as long as Jonathan Rea doesn't win the race. But Rea will have seen that mistake for Toprak. That would have given him a lot more confidence to try and push on, close that gap onto Scott Redding. You can see it, just a bobble there for Toprak as he came through. He's trying to get that bike stopped all the way, still sliding even on that trail brake all the way into the curb, and able to stand the bike up eventually and get it stopped. Has a quick look over his shoulder to see where Bassani is, but that's certainly been the big wake-up call. We've got the Yamaha pit box just underneath our commentary box here, and certainly that would have given them a few increases in the heart rate.
Every time I see them bumping over the curb at 5, sliding and struggling for grip, it looks like we're moments away from disaster. It's disaster for Rea as things stand. He must get past Scott Redding here to keep the title fight alive for another race, to take us to a last race decider. And Jonathan Rea is through on Scott Redding. Redding the slightest bit offline into turn 10. Rea has preferred the tighter line all race, and he uses it masterfully to cut through to lead. Scott Redding, though, will immediately respond. He comes from way back and he almost hits the back of Jonathan Rea. He misses the racing line altogether and does well to stay on the circuit. It's going to give a second wind here to Toprak Razgatlioglu to try and close in on the second place that he needs to seal the title. 0.8 of a second between Rea and Razgatlioglu. Keep an eye on that gap as Redding leaves the door wide open for Razgatlioglu. He will still have the inside though on the switchback for turn 17. He won't want to mess up the two championship contenders, knowing that he's been commenting on aggressive riding all season long, but he's got back in front of Razgatlioglu, and sweetly and cleanly done. Toprak though will have the momentum back into turn 1 at the start of lap 18. This could be a title winning overtake from Toprak Razgatlioglu. He's back into second place, and if he stays there, even with Jonathan Rea in front of him, he will be world champion. First sector completed. Razgatlioglu still 0.7 of a second now behind the race leader. So Jonathan Rea looks set to take a victory in what is the penultimate race of this 2021 campaign. It's going to be a first victory since race 2 of the Portuguese round. Only his second race win over the 3 rounds and a half that we'll have had by the end of this race. But the championship will be decided. Toprak Razgatlioglu making his way through in towards the final sector. Only needed second place in this race to be confirmed world champion, and that is exactly where he sits. It's been far from a percentages game though from Razgatlioglu. It's been a race that has seen him backwards and forwards through the order, but it's all been about Jonathan Rea at the head of the field. Rea looking good to take the race victory. 3 corners remaining for Toprak Razgatlioglu. It's been 6 years for Jonathan Rea, but Rea's reign has come to an end. A new era has begun in World SBK. The 2021 Motul FIM Superbike World Champion is Toprak Razgatlioglu.
After 29 podiums and 13 wins, Toprak Razgatlioglu has dethroned Jonathan Rea to become the 2021 Motul FIM Superbike World Champion. He was joined and congratulated by Jonathan Rea to become the first ever Turkish rider to achieve it, and he was joined by Kenan Sofwoglu in the celebrations. World SBK's Clown Prince celebrated in the finest of styles, the 3rd youngest champion of all time, but certainly one of the most deserving. If you thought race 1's downpours and delays were one thing, and race 2's was something else. A huge deluge as the grid formed meant riders and teams had to go back into their boxes. However, they did make good use of the time. Scott Redding watched race 1, whilst Michael Ruben Rinaldi played to a huge partisan Indonesian crowd. He was joined by Chaz Davies, who got ready for his last race in World Superbike, whilst World Superbike Executive Director Gregorio Lavia was analysing the situation. Miraculously, after a Herculean effort from marshals and the organisation, the track was okay, and race 2, the final race of one of the best seasons ever, was on. For the final time in 2021, a spectacular World Superbike show. Razgatlioglu, Rea and Redding, that's the order in the championship, that's the order on the front row of the grid. This one is going to be pretty special.
A delayed start to race 2 of the 2021 Pirelli Indonesian round. In driving rain, they're underway. Good start from Andrea Locatelli. Good start as well from Garrett Gerloff. Jonathan Rea almost asleep off the line by comparison. Cutting through is Axel Bassani. Michael Ruben Rinaldi making good progress from way back down the order. Rea recovering as they come in towards turn number 1. Locatelli running wide, drops to 3rd. Garrett Gerloff also losing out around the first couple of corners, just as he did in race 1 earlier on today. Razgatlioglu it is then who leads. It's Scott Redding back up into 2nd position. Jonathan Rea into 3rd. Then it's Locatelli versus Axel Bassani and Tati Mercado with a great start. Mercado is up ahead of the BMW boys as Bassani comes firing through on Locatelli and up into 4th place. So further back down the order, watch out for Michael Ruben Rinaldi as well. He's up into P9, and Kota Nazane also up inside the top 10. Just demonstrates what a struggle it's been so far for Garrett Gerloff. Scott Redding eyeing up a move here on top rack Razgatlioglu. Bassani thinking about a move on the riders ahead of him. He's going to let them fight it out among themselves instead. Rea comes through on Redding into turn 10. Razgatlioglu off the line. Bassani almost cuts through on Redding. Again, they're almost 4 abreast as they come in towards turn 11. Razgatlioglu hanging on, but by the skin of his teeth. Oh, big moment there for Jonathan Rea as they come through turns 13 and 14. He manages to recover into the path of Scott Redding. It opens the door to Axel Bassani. The top 4 from race 1 earlier on today are doing battle again at the head of the field in race 2. Rea comes through on Razgatlioglu, who'd opened the door, touches the curb momentarily in a big slide there as he makes his way coming off turn 16. Rea, Razgatlioglu, Redding, Bassani is your new order. Talked all day about Tati Mercado being a wet weather specialist. He's going with Michael van der Mark as the pair of them try to close back in on that lead quartet. Then there's a bit of a gap behind the number 36 as Razgatlioglu fires through at the start of lap 2. Rea will immediately respond. It's the fighting we've been seeing all season, but never in conditions like this. Top rack Razgatlioglu through in towards turn 12. Jonathan Rea tries to stick it out around the outside and eventually gives best as Razgatlioglu recovers the lead, and Scott Redding also here with an opportunity to pounce. Razgatlioglu not afraid of these damp conditions. You suspected that would be the case.
Yeah, Top Rack's doing a really good job in these conditions, considering wet weather had been one of the weaknesses for him, but he looks pretty strong at this stage, willing to make those moves. Obviously Jonathan Rea back into the race lead now.
And here comes Scott Redding on the inside of Razgatlioglu, so Scott Redding might go from 3rd to 1st here. Looks to have more confidence at this stage of the race. Rea covers the inside line as they come through turn 17 to complete lap number 2. It's now Rea, Redding, Razgatlioglu, Bassani and van der Mark. Van der Mark now within striking distance. Fastest man out of that lead quintet last time around. A 1:46 flat compared to a 1:46.7 for Jonathan Rea, the race leader. So van der Mark's got a lot of confidence in that BMW package underneath him. Redding also looking good at this stage. Got right onto the tail of Jonathan Rea. Couldn't quite find his way through last time around.
Yeah, and you can see at the back of this group, Van der Mark on that white BMW trying to get through an Axel Bassani. He can see that the group is starting to splinter ever so slightly. So Van der Mark, he needs to make that move on Bassani quickly.
Tati Mercado broadly going with the group. A second the gap in front of him though, 2.5 seconds though behind to Andrea Locatelli. So at best we got a top 6 covered by 2 seconds, or you could look at it as a top 5 covered by just 7/10, nose to tail. And anytime someone runs slightly off the line or makes a slight error or is slightly tentative, they're going to be swallowed up by the pack here. Scott Redding proving that as they come in towards turn 10. Jonathan Rea wants to get it stopped, can't get it stopped, finally gets it turned and squares it back up the inside of Redding nicely to recover the lead as they come through turns 11 and 12. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, was certainly worth waiting for. Coming in now to turn 12, Redding responds.
Yeah, Scott's always very strong in wet conditions. It looks like Jonathan Rea was going to try and attack him back. Rea not able to do it at this stage, but down in towards the last corner, you'd certainly expect to see him try and make another move. Sixth position and 10 points goes a begging for Tati Mercado. It's been a strong end to the season for him and the MIE Honda team, but it ends in a bit of a disappointment there for him in the gravel trap.
Into lap 4, Razgatlioglu through on Rea here for 2nd position. Scott Redding is taking this as an opportunity to burst away out in front. 1:45.301 last time around. Rea recovers 2nd position. Still not losing too much ground though to Scott Redding out in front. Still just over a second covering this lead quintet. Kota Nozane's just moved through on Andrea Locatelli for 7th position. Nozane's previous best just 9th, so a real opportunity for him to make a name for himself in wet conditions as Jonathan Rea goes soaring around the outside of Scott Redding on the exit of turn 9. So Rea desperate to lead from the front. He will be the first to encounter any changing conditions as the rain continues to come down here at the Mandalika International Circuit. Scott Redding into 2nd place, Razgatlioglu 3rd. Redding now is going to be the next to think about a move as they come through turn 12. Van der Mark was hoping to run the outside and give himself the inside for the next corner. It hasn't worked out for him. It's Bassani who's making progress here. Razgatlioglu going for the more conventional wider line through 15 and 16. Bassani just jams it up the inside. Toprak and Bassani clash as they come in towards turn 17. They meet in the middle. Oh, and down goes Bassani. I think he may have been collected by Michael van der Mark there after a bit of a moment coming off the final turn. And Bassani from the top 5 positions is less than happy about that. He felt he had a chance of becoming number 1 here today and taking the top independent ranking. Unfortunately, his hopes of that end in the gravel trap. Rea and Redding fighting it out at the front here on lap 5 of 12. Jonathan Rea, the fastest of them last time around, but Redding responding quite nicely. Meanwhile, Michael van der Mark getting through on Razgatlioglu, that's for 3rd position, and Redding doing the same to Rea at the head of the field. So no shortage of position changes on lap 5 only of race 2 here in Indonesia.
Yeah, former teammates Van der Mark and Toprak Razgatlioglu. You can see how much rain is coming down. You can see how much gravel was left out in the racetrack as well there by Bassani's crash. Toprak, is he going to be close enough to attack back into turn 1? Looks like Van der Mark is going to try and hold him off, but Toprak's coming down the inside.
Well, that's something we've heard before, isn't it? Toprak down the inside. Favoured opportunity there in towards turn number 1, and Razgatlioglu has got it done. Redding up at the front then. Rea in 2nd. The gap now over a second to this fight for 3rd position. These two knocking the spots off one another, and indeed the spots off Axel Bassani. They've cost one another time, and they've allowed Redding and Rea to escape away. Scott Redding out the front of the field, 1 minute 43.648 in these conditions. That's astonishing. Razgatlioglu again bold on the brakes in towards turn 1. Van der Mark this time holds firm, but in trying to outbrake Razgatlioglu, he's gone too deep, and it is the new world champion. Jonathan Rea, in fact, we rejoin the race-leading battle, and Rea has come through on Redding, and here goes Van der Mark on Razgatlioglu, and quite rightly nobody knows which way to look because it's 2 races in 1 here at the head of the field, and Razgatlioglu and Van der Mark almost touch as they make their way through. The next to the right-handers, Van der Mark going the long way round. It'll give him the inside now for the left-hander at turn 12, and Van der Mark comes back through to recover that 3rd place.
I said no, everyone's got nothing to lose in this race. That's how they're approaching it as well. Good battling between Razgatlioglu and Van der Mark there in the scrap for 3rd.
Van der Mark and Razgatlioglu almost come to blows again as they head back into turn 1. 2 completely different lines, 2 laps in a row. Lap 8 of 12, and Razgatlioglu again holds sway in the podium places.
Yeah, and this is just a battle for 3rd now. They're not going to be able to catch Scott Redding and Jonathan Rea. The gap now stretched out to 3.5 seconds. Jonathan Rea with a new fastest lap last time around, but it is only a couple of tenths of a second between himself and Scott Redding.
Yes, new personal best from Razgatlioglu last time around, but still it looks like Van der Mark for most of this circuit has got the measure of the new world champion. Just a little reminder to everyone that Razgatlioglu is not going to be able to have things all his own way. He's not going to get any extra respect for wearing a number 1 plate next season, and he's not going to need it either. Look at the way he barrels in on the inside of Van der Mark as they come across the line to start lap number 9. Razgatlioglu, a bit of daylight this time around ahead of Michael van der Mark. It has generally been the 2nd and 3rd sector as well. Curse the commentator, that one. Razgatlioglu gets a little bit offline coming off turn 1, and through now comes Michael van der Mark. So Van der Mark recovering that 3rd place. Redding, where did that come from coming off the final turn? I wonder whether Jonathan Rea may have missed a gear shift there, because Redding came powering past in a way that we haven't seen Ducatis do since the beginning of 2019. Coming off turn 9, into braking now for turn 10, squirreling and snaking his way to the inside line for the 10th turn. Redding tries to turn, Rea is already there, the pair touch, Rea then sweeps across the path of Scott Redding coming off turn 10 to recover the lead.
Yeah, Jonathan Rea able to make the move into 10. Scott Redding's going to try and attack straight back. He wouldn't have liked that move from Rea at all, and for Scott Redding it's going to be down into turn 15. That's going to be that chance. He's got good drive through there though to get right with Rea.
Scott Redding did leave the door open. It was wide enough for Jonathan Ray to squeeze past. Redding trying to turn back across the path of Ray, who was already there. Jonathan Ray it is who leads the way. Michael Ruben Rinaldi, according to our timing screens, has just crashed out on the circuit. We haven't seen any further information about that, but focus on the lead battle. Redding through on Ray. Has he overcooked it? Yes, he has. Ray's got the cutback coming through turn 16. Jonathan Ray might be about to relinquish the 2021 world title to Toprak Razgatlioglu at the end of a run of 6 consecutive seasons, but he is demonstrating just why he's taken all those titles. It's back-to-back victories at the 2021 Pirelli Indonesian round.
Jonathan Ray does the double in Indonesia, and as a fitting tribute to handing over the number 1 plate to Toprak Razgatlioglu, the number 65 is back on the front of the Kawasaki. Elsewhere, Chaz Davies lit up the rear wheel for one final time before retirement.